Hey everyone, welcome to my new tutorial. Today we are going to make this cute cyberpunk building illustration, and I really hope you will enjoy this one, and if you do, please don't forget to leave that like. And if you're new to the world of 3D and Blender and you want to learn in the most effective way, be sure to check out my courses. I carefully designed them to take you from beginner skills through low poly and stylized illustration all the way to full character illustration in the shortest time possible, and there's a new one now focused on texturing too, so if you're interested, please check out the link in the description. Now let's jump right into empty Blender file, and first of all I will just select everything here, press X and delete, and now we'll start with some base, so let's press Shift A and add a plane. Now I will tab into the edit mode, press S and 4 to scale it 4 times and confirm with enter. And now let's round the corners a little bit, so let's press Ctrl B then V, or Ctrl Shift B if you prefer that way. And now let's create the bevels, and I'll increase the number of cuts with the mouse wheel and confirm it just like this. Now let's press A to select all and E to extrude like that. And now let's hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. That'll move it right here. So let's tab out, let's press Shift A and we'll add another plane, and now we'll scale it up and create the shape of the building. So let's press tab into the edit mode, press S and scale it up like this, and you can always refine that later. So let's tab out first and let's press G then Shift Z to move this on X and Y axis a little bit to the corner, so we can have a little bit more balanced out composition, and just place it like this. And now we can tab back into the edit mode, press E to extrude and create the building shape like this. And now I want to create the rounded corner here, so let's hit 2 for edge select, select this edge right here and press Ctrl B and create bevel with the same number of segments as before, something like this. And now we can make it a little bit interesting by selecting this edge, holding Ctrl and selecting this one. They'll select this loop all around and press Ctrl B to bevel this as well, but reduce the number of segments to just 1 and confirm it like this, so they'll create this interesting futuristic shape. And now we'll reuse a lot of geometry. So for example, I want to create the balcony here, so I will just select this edge right here again and press Shift D to duplicate, right click to release in place, and press P and separate the selection. They'll separate it here into a new object, so I will tab out now, select the new object, tab into the edit mode, press A and then move it down by pressing G then Z to lock it on the Z axis and move it like here. And now we'll press E then Z to extrude on Z axis tiny bit, and now we are able to extrude it outside, so press A to select all. And first of all, let's make sure our normals are correct, so let's press Shift N to recalculate the normals, and then press Alt E and extrude faces along normals, and let's create an extrusion like this. And I want to create the railing here, so again we'll reuse some of the geometry. So let's click here, hold Ctrl, select this edge, and again Shift D and then P, enter to separate. And again we'll tab out, select the new object, tab into the edit mode, press A to select all and E then Z to extrude up like this. Now we can inset this a little bit, so let's press A to select all and Alt S to move this along the normals, and we can additionally press S to enable even scaling and move it like this. And now we can select these edges on the side, press E then X and extrude them like this so they connect with the building. So let's do that on the other side as well. And now we can press A to select all, Alt E and extrude faces along normals, and press S for even scaling and create a railing like this. And now it's time to cut in some windows, so let's tab out, select the main building shape, let's tab into the edit mode, and first of all let's create some loop cuts so we can divide this shape. So let's press Ctrl R and create a cut right here to separate the stories. And now let's press Ctrl R and create one right here so we can have 2 windows right there. Let's go for face select, select these 2 faces right here, let's press I to inset, and to make this even let's hit 0.3 on the keyboard and confirm with enter. And we can do the same right here, so I 0.3 and enter, so we have 2 same windows. And we can now hold period on a keyboard, switch to individual origins and press S then X to scale them individually a little bit like this. And now we can hold period and switch back to median point, and let's press Alt E and extrude faces along normals, and additionally S for even scaling, and let's extrude them inside And to make this more interesting, we can duplicate and separate this as well. So Shift D, right click to release, P, enter to separate, and we can leave it in place for now. We can continue with the building. So let's go right here and create an inset like this. And we can switch to the edge select by pressing 2, select the bottom edge, press G then Z and move it down a little bit like this. And now we can go back to the face select by pressing 3, select this face and extrude inside. And again, we can press Shift D, enter and P, enter to separate to another object. And let's now continue down here. But before we do, let's enable X-ray view. And let's select the bottom face. You can see this dot right here. If you click near it, you will select it. Press X and delete faces. We don't need that one anymore. And now let's toggle the X-ray again, and we can select these two faces. Press I to inset, but now since we removed the bottom face, we can press B and that will snap to boundary. So we can create an inset like this, very easy. Now 2 for edge select, select the top edges and move this down a little bit. And now we can go back to the face select by pressing 3, select these two and E to extrude inside. And additionally, we can remove these two. So press X and delete faces, and we can do the same on the other side. So you can see the boundary is still enabled, and we can move this down and extrude inside. Let's remove this. And now to make this a little bit more interesting, we can select the top, press I to inset. Be careful around this corner, and E to extrude down to make this a little bit more detailed and interesting. Okay, something like that. And now we can tab out and we can select these separated objects. And let's go into the edit mode, press A to select all. And we can press I and disable the boundary to create a frame like this. Press X and delete the inner face. Press A again and E to extrude. And we can go all the way outside like this. And now tab out, let's select these two objects, tab into the edit mode, press A to select all, I to inset. Let's create frames like this, press X and faces to delete them, and we'll press A, Alt E and extrude faces along normals like this. And now we can do similar thing down there, but we didn't separate any geometry, so you know, it's up to you if you want to have something like that there. I want another frame right here, so I will just go ahead and select this loop right here by alt clicking it, and now Shift D and P to separate. Tab out, select the new loop and extrude in a similar way as before. And now we can tab out and we can create like a garage gate right here. So select the building, tab into the edit mode, and we'll separate this edge on the top. So 2 for edge select, select this one, Shift D and P to separate, tab out and select the new object, tab into the edit mode, and we can just press A and E then Z to extrude this down like this. And now let's Ctrl R and increase number of cuts with the mouse wheel like this. And now we can press Ctrl B and bevel it very slightly, press X and delete those. And now additionally we can press E and extrude this inside, and press A and move this all inside a little bit. So now we can continue with some more details. So let's tab out and Shift right click here. We'll create like a sign here. So let's press Shift A and we'll add a plane. Now tab into the edit mode, press R then X and rotate 90 degrees. Let's confirm with enter. And now we can press G then X and 1 to move this 1 meter. And additionally we can select this edge, press G then X and move it closer here. And now press A, G then Z and move this up. So the origin point stayed here. So now if you extrude this and let's Ctrl Alt click these edges around this loop, we can press Ctrl B to bevel them slightly with 2 or 3 segments. And now if you tab out, you can just scale this up and down according to that origin point and it will stay in place. So there will be a first sign, and now let's Shift right click here. We'll create like a pole with a sign here. So let's press Shift A and we'll add a single vert. If you don't have this option here, go to the edit preferences and add-ons and search for extra objects and just check the box right there. And you will see all these additional options right here, and you can add a single vert. Now make sure you switch to the vertex select right here or press 1 and press E then Z and extrude this up. They'll just extrude one vertex. but then you are able to tab out, right click and convert to curve, and in the curve settings you can add some bevel geometry right here and they'll easily create a pole for you. And now you can tab in, select the top control point, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. Now tab out, let's press Shift A and we'll add a plane. Now we can tab into the edit mode, press S, then X and scale it on X axis. And now since we know this is 2 meters wide, we can press E, then 2 to extrude these 2 meters up and confirm. And we can round those corners here too. So go for edge select here, Control Alt and click this edge to select all those around that loop, and Control B to bevel. So now you can adjust this and, for example, make this pole a little bit wider, or if this is too high you can, bring this down or whatever you like. And now there are a lot of details you can create around here. So for example, let's just quickly add a circle by pressing Shift A, and I will just reduce the vertices to something like 24. Tab into the edit mode, scale it down, press F to fill and E to extrude and Control B to bevel. So this will be like a trash can or something, or some like generator or whatever detail you want to create. Basically you can go really wild here. You can create street lamps, you can create railings, you can create street barricades, trash cans, a lot of stuff. You can add details on the building, create like electric boxes, but I'm on a very limited time here, so I will just create one detail right here. That's the air conditioning on the roof, but you can go much wider with your details. So let's tab out and let's select the building, and I will again reuse some geometry. So let's tab in and I'll go for face select, and let's select some of these faces. So hold Shift and select them one by one. I'm interested in this one. And I don't want to select the roof because there is an excess of vertices up here in the corner. So I'll just leave that one out and select this one here by holding Shift, the one in the back and this. And now let's press Shift D and P, enter to separate this. Select the new object, tab into the edit mode, and now let's make some adjustments. So first of all, let's go for edge select. Select this edge and the opposite one by holding Shift and press F to fill, so we connect them. Now let's look from the top and let's enable X-ray, and you can see they are misaligned a little bit. So let's select those on the side, press S, then Y and 0 to scale them on Y axis, and the other ones as well. And basically that will make them aligned. Now we can move this a little bit closer together. And now let's look at the geometry. So press 1 for vertex select, and you can see there are some excess vertices right here. So we can press Ctrl X to dissolve them. And let's bring this up, and these two we can slide. So press G twice and slide them towards here. And now we can press A to select all, Alt E and extrude faces along normals, and press S to scale evenly and confirm like this. And additionally, to make sure, we can press A and Shift N to recalculate normals. So this will be like an air conditioning duct or something like that. So we can tab out, disable X-ray, and now we can Shift right click here, press Shift A and add another plane. Tab into the edit mode and scale it down, then S, then X to scale it on X axis as well. Let's make this larger a little bit and move it in the object mode. Tab back in, extrude, and now we'll create a bevel here. So 2 for edge select and create a bevel. Okay, let's tab out and let's make sure the normals are correct. So let's press A to select all, tab into the edit mode, press A and Shift N. If you want to see, you can always enable normals right here, so you can see them, and then press Shift N and see if something changes. Now let me deactivate those, and now we can add some bevel modifiers. So select the building and let's go to the modifiers panel and let's add the bevel modifier. I will increase the segments to 2, and in the shading enable harden normals. Don't worry about the warning here. And in the geometry, switch this to arc to have better corners inside. And now to actually see the amount in the geometry section, we can disable clamp overlap, and that will allow us to really see the amount that we have set here. So let's make this smaller here, something like 0.01. They'll do nicely. And now with the building selected, let's press A to select all, and you can see the building is still highlighted in yellow. That means it's active. So we can now click here and copy to select it, to copy the same bevel modifier to every object. And now we can right click, shade auto smooth and increase to 180 degrees, and that will make this smooth and beveled all around our scene. And now I don't like the amount on the bevel, so with all of the objects selected, we can hold Alt and the modifier will apply to every object. And let's increase the beveling on all of these. Something like this, so it's more rounded and stylized. So now I want to create more interesting details. So for example, now with the bevel active, it'll be quite easy to reuse the geometry. So let's select the AC unit up there, tab into the edit mode. We can go for face select this face right here, press I to inset and E to extrude. And now we can just press Shift D, right click to release, and Alt S to move this up, create few cuts there. Press Ctrl B to bevel them, press X and delete those faces. And now in the face select mode, press 3, select these 3 and extrude them down, and they will create nice detail like this. And we can also press A and Shift N to recalculate the normals. And now tab out, and I can see we have a glitch here with the bevel modifier, so we'll need to individually, reduce the bevel right there on that object. And I want to have like an interesting pixel like neon sign here, so let's tap into the edit mode, select the face in the front, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it. And now we can tab out. Let's look from the side by pressing 3 on a numpad, and let's press Shift A and we'll add a plane. Now let's press R, then Y and 90 to rotate this 90 degrees. Let's tap into the edit mode and let's scale it down like this. And now we'll subdivide this, so right click subdivide and let's enter something like 8. And now, while still in the face select, it's really important to make this easy, press Ctrl B to bevel, and they'll create this bevel in between, those squares. So we can create really small bevel like this, press X and delete faces. So we now have all these individual faces, and we can select by holding Shift some interesting pixel shape. So for example, something like this. And now we can press P and enter to separate that. And now choice is yours. You can either leave everything in place and make them different color, or you can delete the other ones. So in this case, I will delete the outside and just leave these selected in place. Tab into the edit mode and extrude them. And of course, we can tab out, hold Shift, select the other object with the bevel modifier on and copy to select it. Now we can reduce the amount, right click and shade auto smooth. So we have something like this here. And I want to create something similar here as well, but this time I will use the other approach. So tab into the edit mode. I will first create an inset here and extrude this inside, and I can clearly see we need lower amount for the bevel. And now tab into the edit mode, hold Shift S and snap cursor to select it, and I will fill this up with a plane. So tab out, press Shift A and add a plane. Now tab into the edit mode, press S to scale it down, R then X to rotate 90 degrees, and we can scale this 3 times. So press S then Z and 3. And now let's press Ctrl R and create 2 cuts with the mouse wheel like this. Now press A, right click and subdivide, and again we'll subdivide this few times to create those squares. Something like this should be enough. Let's look from the front by pressing 1 on a numpad, and now we'll go for face select, press Ctrl B and create those small bevels, press X and delete faces. And now we are able, to select some different shapes right here. It can be basically anything, like some alien language or something like that. And now I'll press P to separate this. Now I will leave both of those in place. Tab into the edit mode, press A to select all, extrude them, and transfer the bevel modifier here. Reduce the amount, but additionally hold Alt so it applies to every object like this. Right click and shade auto smooth, and I can see we need to adjust bevel here as well because there's not enough angle there. And I want to, reduce the height of that sign because, our display doesn't fit. So let's move this down. And right here we can tab into the edit mode, enable X-ray, select all of this and just move it down like this. Okay, this is ready for the materials. So now we can go to the render settings and enable ambient occlusion, bloom and screen space reflections, and in the cycles options enable GPU and sound denoising. I will reduce the samples to 512, and the same applies for tiling. And basically we are ready to add some materials, so hold Z and go to material preview. We can hold Shift S and snap cursor to world origin, press Shift A and add a plane. Now we can tab into the edit mode, press S and scale it up, that will be our background. Tab out and now press N, and I will find the PR Isocam add-on. If you don't have it, you will find the link in the description. Just download the zip file, and here in the edit preferences and add-ons, you will click install and just locate the zip file and then check the box for the Isocam add-on. And it's just a simple tool that enables you with some, camera presets like this. So I will just click here and create isometric camera with 4:3 ratio. And now I will hit N again to collapse the side panel, go to the output settings and change the resolution to something like 1600 to 1200 and press G then Z to move the camera up. And in the camera settings, change the auto scale to something like 16 or maybe even more. We'll see about that. So now let's select the background and create a new material there. I will call this background, and let me just reduce the value so it's all black. Now let's select the road and let's create, like a dark gray material there. And here we can increase the bevel amount as well. And now for the building, I want this metallic, so let's go create a new material and let's increase the metallic all the way to 1. And we can additionally reduce the base color value so it's a little bit darker. And we can then create another one that will be a little bit brighter. So for example, here we can use the same material, just duplicate it and make it a little bit brighter. And here use the dark one. And same for the signs. Let's add the materials there as well. And for the frames, we can go the dark material. And you can see I'm not creating a lot of materials here because I want to keep this fairly simple. Because the most of the color will come from the lighting. So let's add some more of these metal materials. And the fact that they are metallic and reflective will make this easier. It will create a lot of interesting gradients around, and you can really get playful with the lights and the colors. So let's give some metal material here as well. And now we can create our first emission lights. So first of all, let's make this black. And here in between, we can create a new material, switch principle to emission, and increase the strength to something like 5 and give this some color, and you can have a nice pixel sign like this. And here we can do the same thing only with a different color. So we can duplicate this and change this to like purple and maybe increase the value here a little bit like this. And now we'll add emission to those windows. So let's select the building, tap into the edit mode, and with the face select by pressing 3, let's select these inside faces for the windows and doors. And let's create a new material slot. Let's create a new material and hit assign. You will see it change here, so you can tab out of the edit mode. And here we'll change to emission again and increase to something really strong like 25. This is too strong with the bloom in Eevee, but don't worry about that. In cycles it will be different. And now we can go something warm like this. And to create a nice contrast, I will shift right click here, press Shift A, add a point light. And you don't see it happening here. That's because we have disabled scene lights and scene world. So let's enable them in the viewport as well. And now we can change this to something, blue, and move it inside. So press G, then X, and then G, then Z to move it up. So we have some light coming from the garage door. Maybe it can be even stronger. We'll see in the cycles. And now speaking of cycles, we'll need some surrounding lights as well. So let's hold Shift S, snap cursor to world origin. Let's press Shift A, let's add area light, press G then Z and move it up. Let's make this larger a little bit and let's change the square to disk. And now I want to rotate this around the cursor, so hold period and switch to 3D cursor. And now R, then X and 45 minus. And let's rotate it around Z axis, so R then Z. And let's go opposite of the camera. Now let's go for a camera view and let's hold Z and switch to the rendered preview. And now we can press Ctrl B and limit our render preview only to the camera bounce. So this is quite dark, but you can already see the emission creates really nice lighting on the building. We just need to create some additional ambience. So first of all, let's increase this to something like 1500 and make it like a blue. And already you can see a difference, and you can, for example, bring it down a little bit to shine a little bit more on the background. That will create those nice gradients there. Let me duplicate something here so we have more details in place. And that's basically everything I want to do with the lighting here. Just one basic step in the world settings. Let's increase the world ambience and let's change its color to something purple, and you will see how nicely it blends the colors together. And now to disperse the light colors even more, we can press Shift A, we can add a cube, tab into the edit mode, make it larger, press G then Z, move it up, and this will be the fog. And to be able to easily find it here in the outliner, you can press F2 and just call this fog, and then in the material settings create a fog material. Now remove the principled BSDF from the surface shader and add a volume shader, principled volume here, and this should look differently, and sometimes this happens. Basically probably the normals are flipped, and when I scaled the cube I probably went to the minus values and just flipped the cube inside out, if it makes sense. So if something like this happens to you, you go into the edit mode, press Shift N, and you will see that will recalculate the normals and create the fog, because with density 1 it really should be barely visible. And now we can reduce this to 0.015 or something like that, and you will get this nice fog, you know, with all of these dispersed light here. And now in the render settings you can go to color management, increase the contrast, for example, to medium high contrast, and play with the exposure. And right away you can see how nice this illustration looks with all of these lights, this emission inside that fog blended together with that world color. And now additionally, to make it even nicer, let me go ahead and render this first. We can now go ahead into the compositing. I know with Blender 3.5 now there's a viewport compositor, but it doesn't work with the glare node, which is the one I will use right now. So that's too bad. I hope that will get fixed. So in the compositing, let's enable use nodes, and right here let's press Shift A and we'll add filter and glare. And let's change the streaks to fog glow, and additionally press Shift A and let's add output and viewer so you can preview your result from this node right here. And now you can see the result of the glare node, which will create basically that bloom effect you could see in the EV preview. But here I think this is too strong still, so let's reduce the size to something like 6. And now you are able to go ahead, render this again. So that's the simple stylized cyberpunk building. I really hope you enjoyed this one, and again, if you did, please leave that like, and if you're new around here, please hit that subscribe. Thank you all for watching and have a wonderful day.